Welcome to First Things First. It is a rainy Monday in New York. It does not matter. We are coming off a great weekend of football. I'm Jenna Wolf. That is Nick Wright. That is not Chris Carter. It is, however, Chris Canty.
Still got the CC thing going on.
He's still got the CC thing. I only remember one name, which is good. CC got stuck in Miami after the game he called, the Dolphins
game in NFL history.
7 hours that thing was delayed.
Literally the longest game in NFL history, but he'll be here later.
He's going to join us remotely.
Thank you for filling in, brother.
We got Chris Canty here to stick around.
Your hair looks particularly lovely today,
Thank
Jenna.
you so much.
You're very welcome.
As does yours. And yours.
Thank you,
Spreading
Jenna.
the love. All right, we are going to start with one of the most epic performances you will ever see in the National Football League. It was the Packers, it was the Bears, and it was because of one of the best to ever play the game. Early scare for Aaron Rodgers, though, as he had to be carted off the field in the second quarter with a leg injury. Came back with his team down 20. He's like, what? I got to do this? Well, he did. He lit it up, throwing 3 second-half touchdown passes, including the game winner to Randall Cobb with just over 2 minutes left in the game, all while still hobbled with that injured leg. Aaron Rodgers talking about his epic performance after the win over the Bears.
This is what we're paid to do. You know, we're paid to deal with injuries and play through them. That's what everybody's doing and will be doing throughout this season. That's the measure of a teammate, is what are you willing to put on the line for your team. And to me, it's a no-brainer. Being out there is special. The ovation from the crowd lifts you up, gives you the energy, the momentum of the game, and you feel the tide turning. Is special. This is definitely go down as you know, one of my favorite memories. Playing behind Brett Favre for 3 years, you realize you gotta be tough to play this position. So you gotta situation. It's about coming back out and leading, and if you can do it and deal with the pain, you should be out there.
So, guys, Aaron Rodgers comes out and says this is what we're paid to do. Aaron Rodgers, of course, just getting paid to do just this, and this is how he comes out and responds. But how remarkable was what he did last night in the situation, given that he was injured, and the situation during the game being down 20 points, was it?
Remarkable is a perfect word, because it was absolutely remarkable. It was not unbelievable.
Yeah.
It was totally believable because of who this guy is. We had a conversation a few months ago about whether or not we're in almost the golden era of sports goats or near goats. LeBron, Serena, Bolt, Phelps, Messi, Federer, Brady, Rodgers.
Yeah.
Like, he is in that class. He's on that list of greatest to ever do something, doing it in his prime. And to see him out there hobbled. I thought they did a great job on the broadcast of showing the side-by-side of his dropbacks and how pre-injury his dropback looked like this, post-injury his dropback looked like that. And for him to make that throw is make-believe, Canny.
Yeah.
That throw is across your body on a bad foot, 50 yards, couldn't have handed it to Geronimo Allison better. And he and Brady are the only quarterbacks in my adult life that could be in this situation, down 17 late, and I'm like, well, you know, if they score here, I actually like their chances. That's what he is. He's the best player in the league. He's been the best player in the league for quite some time now, and he showed it last night. While hobbled, it was spectacular.
Well, here's the thing, Nick, and you're absolutely right. It is spectacular, and there are only a handful of quarterbacks that can make that throw to Geronimo Allison, drop it in the bucket just like that. But, Jenna, you asked the question, how remarkable is it? They've been playing football 100 years. The Green Bay Packers, it's their 100th year in franchise history. They've never had a larger fourth-quarter comeback. Never. It hadn't happened. So that tells you the level that Aaron Rodgers is on. And I'm looking at that game last night, and I said, if you're going to invest this kind of money in this quarterback that's capable of leading this type of comeback, you would think that Mike McCarthy in the front office of the Green Bay Packers, after having your star quarterback come off a shoulder injury that ended his season a year before, you would do a better job of protecting them. Whether it's personnel, whether it's scheme, you would think that that would be a focal point going into this offseason. Now, it looked like the offensive line cleaned up some of the protection issues that they had in the first half, but I think that was coupled with the Chicago Bears taking their foot off the gas a little bit. There was a little little bit of relax in that group. They weren't as aggressive in the second half, and I'm not for the life of me understanding why Vic Fangio didn't call more pressures, more blitzes, especially in the middle of the pocket.
He was mounting.
Aaron Rodgers was dealing with a left leg injury, and his mobility was clearly compromised. I don't understand why they didn't try to go after him a little more, but it seems like the Chicago Bears left the door open for Aaron Rodgers to start that comeback.
Up to and including on the 3rd and 10 that Randall Cobb ends up taking 70+ for a touchdown, Khalil Mack is in coverage. Like, really? That's not what you paid him $131 million for. What you paid him $131 million for was what he was doing throughout the first half. Go get the quarterback. But one of the reasons you said the protection issues got cleaned up, I don't know if that was better offensive line play or if that was in the second half. Rodgers took the game out of McCarthy and the staff's hands. They went more no huddle. It was more Aaron Rodgers getting the line of scrimmage. What does he see? And getting the ball out quickly. He was magnificent in that situation once they started going hurry up. In the second half, he was what? 17 of 23 for 273 yards and 3 touchdowns. You're talking about needing to get him help. How about help at backup quarterback, which he hasn't had for the last few years? Rodgers asked them, essentially, can you guys hold the fort for 15 minutes? I'll be back. Can you keep it together for 15 minutes?
15 minutes.
In those 15 minutes, Deshaun Kaiser, who was the most turnover-prone player in the league last year, had one fumble where Khalil just took the ball from him. That took 3 points away from the Packers because that was a gimme field goal. And then at the end of the half, partly on Kaiser, partly on the play call, it's 40 seconds left. You're on your own 25. The other team has no timeouts. You just run the ball, go to halftime, get Rodgers back, hopefully. They call a screen pass to Khalil Mack. That ain't great because he's on the other team. And now all of a sudden Rodgers has to have an epic comeback, which he, of course, ended up orchestrating.
You know, there were so many storylines coming into this game. It was the rivalry. It was Khalil Mack coming back. It was Aaron Rodgers back on the field. And then, yet, at the end, the story became what this guy did being injured. How concerned are you both with that leg and what you saw and how he had to sort of overcome it and deal with it? You saw it was obviously bothering him during the game.
Well, I'm concerned a little bit long-term because what makes Aaron Rodgers special is just the ability to be able to use his legs to extend plays and give his receivers time to uncover downfield. Now, all the heroics that Aaron Rodgers showed in that second half, and particularly that fourth quarter, I say the Chicago Bears left the door open because on that last scoring drive, Kendall Fuller could have intercepted the pass and the game would have been over. It would have been curtains for the Green Bay Packers. So for all of the things that Aaron Rodgers did in the second half, I feel like this game was more about the Chicago Bears relaxing, knowing that they had a 17-point lead going into the fourth quarter in Lambeau Field. And you can't relax when you have a quarterback like
right, which
Aaron
against
Rodgers.
Anyone else, maybe it's okay. But Rodgers and Brady, those are the only two you really aren't going to relax.
Well, this is the one knock on Rodgers for a long time was lack of fourth quarter comebacks. Now, it was kind of misleading. One of the reasons was he wasn't trailing in the fourth quarter very often. Another reason was for a fourth quarter comeback, you need fourth quarter stops, and his team hadn't been great at getting those. But now in the last 4 years, there are 4 instances league-wide of 20-point second-half comebacks. 2 by Aaron Rodgers, 2 by everybody else in the league. So that what was a weakness of his theoretically has become a strength. But you mentioned the Fuller dropped pick. I can't believe the broadcast crew didn't spend more time on this. The Bears they were calling it a 3rd and 1. It was really a 3rd and 2. When a first down ends the game, you can take knees from there. Not only do they don't run it on 3rd down, and they don't even consider going for it on 4th down. You're up 3. They kick a field goal on 4th and 1. Instead, if you get the first down, the game's over. You kick the field goal, guess what? A touchdown still beats you. The moment you kick that field goal, you've got to know, man, the Packers became a favorite. No, if Rodgers got the ball back, they were going to be a favorite. And for the Bears staff to be so aggressive early, and then the entire second half, Trubisky turns into check down Charlie.
Check down Trubisky, no doubt.
Didn't it feel to you on the Bears side of things like the Jags-Pats playoff game? Where for the scripted plays, those first 20 or so plays, the Jags were moving the football. Trubisky and the Bears offense looked awesome. Matt Nagy, first-year head coach, moving the football. But as soon as the script ran out and you had to actually call a game, they were brutal. They had no movement of the football. If not for the Khalil Mack touchdown, this team would have stayed at 16 points for the game. I mean, their offense was absolutely inept after they got through the first quarter.
Yeah, what you're talking about is 62 passing yards by Mitchell Trubisky in the second half, which is unacceptable. You drafted the kid second overall a year ago to develop into a quarterback that was able to elevate the play of everybody around him, but also be able to win in situational football. And the Chicago Bears offense didn't do that in the second half. Now, what I don't understand is why Matt Nagy took his foot off the gas, play calling wise, why they weren't as aggressive in the second half as you were in the first half. Because you got to know, when Aaron Rodgers steps back on that field, they're going to put some points on the board. You're not going to hold the Green Bay Packers to just a field goal for the entire game. So you have to understand you still have to be aggressive and score points. But when that complexion of the game started to tilt after the Geronimo Allison touchdown pass, it just felt like momentum was with Aaron Rodgers and the Green Bay Packers, and there was nothing the Bears could do to stop that.
But despite all that, their one sustained drive of the second half was at the end. You have Jordan Howard gash him for 10 yards on 2nd and 12. You have 3rd and a yard and a half. You have 2 chances to get 2 yards to win the game, and they throw it. They get aggressive one time in the second half. Yeah. They throw a pass to Tariq Cohen instead of running Howard, and then they kick a field goal, and not surprisingly, the best player in the world goes down and beats you.
I don't understand it. Vic Fangio, you got to sweep the leg. Tell your defense to sweep the leg. No mercy. You got Aaron Rodgers compromised. You can't let the Packers off the hook.
All right, it's the reason why this is a very storied rivalry. It was the Packers over the Bears. Much more to discuss with that game. Coming up on the other side, though, why did the Dallas Cowboys offense struggle in Week 1? Next on First Things First. Back here, First Things First, we're going to get to Cowboys and Dak Prescott in a second. But first, Aaron Rodgers returning from the locker room last night to throw a beautiful pass to Geronimo Allison for the touchdown. Unforgettable night for Rodgers.
And while this was a throw only Rodgers can make in the league, well, maybe him and Patty Mahomes, that's a hell of a catch by Geronimo Allison.
Yeah, that's a
hell of a catch.
Yeah, he just put Kyle Fuller on a poster just now. That's unbelievable play right there.
And that was the moment I was like, I think the Packers are going to win this game.
Seahawks, Chris Carson gets the handoff. Watch what happens next. Just clears a Broncos defender for a 24-yard gain.
And watch this. It looks like that looks photoshopped there because he just keeps raising. Yeah. He just, the slow-mo from behind, he just keeps rising in the air.
What is Bradley Roby doing right there? Don't cut tackle him. Try to get the guy on the ground. You can't go like that, even though you're a corner.
New NFL rules, man. He's trying to go low.
No,
Bucs Saints, and what a game for Ryan Fitzpatrick, just slinging it all day. This one-handed diving catch by Chris Godwin was incredible.
Jenna, I know we've had a lot of post-show meetings about trying to cut down on some corny puns, but you can call him Fitzmagic today. He was Fitzmagic.
Stop it.
What do you mean stop it?
Stop
it.
He
was great.
He was great. Fitzpatrick is great in a small sample size.
That's what they said about Case Keenum. That's all I'm going to say.
By the way, they were right. Did you see
that? Exactly.
Oh, my goodness.
All right, finally, fastest man in the NFL, Nick. Tyreek Hill with an unbelievable catch. What an adjustment. He ended the game with 3 touchdowns. Chiefs beat the Chargers.
Go ahead.
I was more impressed with the end cut that he took to the house. I mean, he separated from everybody on the Chargers defense.
Oh, we'll have more on that later. But this is noteworthy because everyone knew he was fast. But going up and getting it, I once knew a man who said he wasn't a #1 receiver. That man's name might be Chris Carter.
Wow.
Eat that, CC, in Miami.
All right, moving on to the Dallas Cowboys. After weeks of analyzing, and some might say over-analyzing what the Cowboys had on offense, they kicked off the season with a loss to the Carolina Panthers. Ezekiel Elliott had a decent performance running for 69 yards and a touchdown. But quarterback Dak Prescott couldn't get it going, throwing for only 170 yards while being sacked 6 times. Dak downplayed the loss after the game.
The first game, we got a lot of ball left to play. We got a good team in that locker room, and we fought the fight tonight. So excited for what we can learn from this game and move forward.
Okay, Chris, we've talked for weeks about what the Cowboys were going to do on offense, who they were going to throw the ball to, how hard they were going to ride Ezekiel Elliott. How concerning was the offense after this loss to the Panthers?
Well, it's a little bit concerning just because you knew that going into this game, the Carolina Panthers were going to take away Ezekiel Elliott. Nick, you were right, no pun intended. But, I mean, you knew that Dak Prescott was going to have to make some plays in the passing game, particularly outside of the numbers. But Dak Prescott showed a lack of awareness in the pocket. He wasn't able to feel the rush. He started looking down at the guys coming to tackle him rather than keeping his eyes downfield at his receivers. And through no fault of his own, those guys couldn't get open to save their lives. And that's really where you have to start with the blame from the Dallas Cowboys not having a good performance yesterday. The front office didn't do a great job of replacing the talent that walked out of the door with Des Bryant and Jason Witten. I appreciate what Deontay Thompson, my former teammate, was out there trying to do yesterday, but Allen Hurns, Tavon Austin, those guys didn't come to the party. They've got to be able to help their quarterback by being able to get open in one-on-one coverage. Ezekiel Elliott can only do so much when he's running up against 8- and 9-man fronts. It comes down to those receivers being able to win one-on-ones. And if you're in an NFL uniform, if you're consistently getting one-on-ones, at some point you've got to be able to win those. The Dallas Cowboys skill position players weren't able to do that yesterday.
Sometimes we spend all week talking about a game, and then I watch the game and I feel like an idiot because I'm like, okay, everything I thought was going to happen didn't happen, and I got it exactly wrong.
No, not yesterday.
And sometimes I watch a game and said, oh, that's exactly what we said, that if there was any game on the schedule where Zeke is going to struggle, it was going to be yesterday.
Yeah, that's what you
if there
said.
was any game on the schedule where it would have to be about plays on the outside, it was going to be yesterday, and the Cowboys were not up to the challenge. 0 big plays. 0 plays greater than 20 yards in the entire NFL game.
Yep.
Only 3 plays greater than 15 yards in the entire game. That's awful. And I understand Carolina has a good defense, but it is not, forget the 85 Bears, it's not even the 2015 Broncos. Like, it's a good defense,
Yep.
a very good NFL defense, particularly up front. But to have that level of ineptitude and for Dak to be under duress more than any other quarterback in the league yesterday. No quarterback was sacked a higher percentage of times than Dak yesterday. He was sacked 6 times, one of the most of his career as a Cowboy, and Dak wasn't up to the challenge. And I understand the receivers didn't help him out, but there were also some skipped balls, some balls that went high, and now I've got to ask myself and ask anybody, like, how good's Dak? It's a fair question to ask. It's not a one-game sample. We can go the last 10 games. Take out, he had a great game against the Giants in December of last year. Here's his passing yards in the games surrounding it and since then. 145, 179, 102, 212, 181, 179, 170. Like, and in the last half of those games, he had Dez, he had Witten until yesterday. Like, Dak has not shown me that he can even be an above-average NFL quarterback unless the situation is perfect. All 5-year offensive linemen healthy and playing at 3 of them at all-pro level. Your running back giving you 100 a game, and as you pointed out, 1,100 on first down, so you're always in 2nd and 4. Like, at some point, Dak Prescott needed to, in that game, make some type of big play, and he was unable to. Part of that's on the receivers, but part of that's on Dak.
Would Dak Prescott have had a better game if he had better receivers? Was it about receivers getting separation, or was it about Dak not being able to deal with the pressure?
Well, I think it's about the receivers getting separation. That was the biggest issue. But when it comes to Dak Prescott, there were times at the end of that game where he put himself in bad situations. You look at the last possession that they had on the sack fumble by Mario Addison. He essentially sacked himself because the offensive line picked up the twist stunt, but he moved outside of the pocket and he went right into the pressure. Mario Addison tracked him down from behind and forced the strip sack. Those are the types of plays where I scratch my head and I wonder, is Dak Prescott a quarterback that's going to be worthy of a $100+ million contract in the offseason? Because that's the decision that the Dallas Cowboys are going to be faced with. Keep in mind, they don't have a 5th-year option on Dak. So, and he's going into his 4th season of contract year. They've got to make a decision about his future and what they're going to do at the quarterback position. But it's clear to me in watching yesterday's game that Ron Rivera made sure that his defense got the message. We're going to keep the Dallas Cowboys offense off schedule. We're not going to allow 2nd and 6 or better. We're not going to allow 3rd and 3 or better. We're going to put them in long downs and distances.
And it worked.
And that's exactly what happened. And you saw that Dak Prescott wasn't able to make the plays, wasn't able to extend drives. 2 of 11 on 3rd down.
They didn't get the ball past the 50 until the second half. All right? Like, they didn't run their first play in Carolina territory until the second half. Carolina, the Dallas defense did its job. Cam was under duress. They were injuring Panthers, not intentionally, but they lose the right tackle. Greg Olson's in a walking boot. Like, Cam did as much as he could have given the circumstances. But if I tell you you're going to hold the Panthers to 16, The answer can't be we score 8. Like, I mean, it just can't be. They even the Panthers let them off the hook with the right guard blocked his own snap on the extra point.
Yep.
So instead of being 17-0 and the game essentially being over, it's 16-0, and you can squint hard enough and say, oh, 2 touchdowns, 2 2-point conversions were there, but they never had a semblance of an offensive flow. And yes, of course, Dak, they have totally unproven, dare I say, less than mediocre wide receivers. But there wasn't a lot of balls that I saw yesterday. I'm like, man, Dak placed it perfectly, and that receiver just couldn't come down with the catch. Like, it was both parties at fault for the Cowboys' offense being so inept. And Zeke wasn't amazing, but 4.5 a carry against that defense with a touchdown. Like, Zeke did about as good as I thought he could do against that defense. The passing game was horrible.
All right, so the Cowboys dropped their season opener. A lot of questions surrounding Dak Prescott. Coming up on the other side, Tom Brady still getting it done at age 41. That's next on First Things First. Big college football game coming your way. USC against Texas. Always fireworks when these two square off. That's Saturday at 8 Eastern on Fox and on the Fox Sports app.
Old UT and Tom Herman squeaked out a win against Tulsa this week. Now they got USC to come beat their heads in. Excited to watch it.
Back here on First Things First, we're going
Texas just
viral.
can't get right.
Check out Shaquille and Shaquem Griffin hugging their mom before the game in Denver on Sunday. Really sweet moment here.
There was also a moment where there was a young lady, or I'm sorry, a young man who had the same congenital birth defect as Shaquem, who was at the game, and Shaquem came over and spent some time with him. It was a really cool moment, and got to be so cool for that mom.
Oh, to have both of her kids playing
for the
football
boys,
on the
for their
same
brothers
team.
to be able to play on the same team and go after it and go get it, playing on defense. That's awesome.
Absolutely, that was really cool.
awesome.
Really, really cool.
All right, time now for some stories to start your morning. The Bucs surprised the Saints with a 48-40 win behind 417 yards passing and 5 total touchdowns from Harvard's Ryan Fitzpatrick. Chris, how much pressure? How much did this surprise you?
It surprised everybody in the National Football League. It surprised
Ryan
me
Fitzpatrick.
looking at what was going on in the Superdome. I thought it was a basketball game, not a football game. Who would have thought 100 points would be scored in this game? But if you tell me that Drew Brees would only have 8 incompletions, I would tell you that they were going to win that game. But, I mean, Ryan Fitzpatrick came to play, Deshaun Jackson and Mike Evans.
All right, so the Saints haven't won an opener in 5 years. Remember last year they started 0-2 before they turned their whole season around. What's concerning for the Saints is that this looked like the defense of the 3 years prior to last year. For the Bucs, you know who probably didn't like watching that? Jameis Winston.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, we saw you have Mike Evans, who's the big, great number one, Deshaun Jackson, who's an elite speed threat. We saw what that passing offense can look like. Again, Fitzpatrick, probably next game will throw
500
picks.
total yards of offense, though, Nick.
Man,
Come on
and
now. Stop it.
and a great first down run to ice the game. Fitz magic.
Moving on to Andrew Luck's
Gonna con
debut.
another team.
He threw for 319 yards and 2 touchdowns, but the Colts weren't able to get the win over the Bengals. Nick, what'd you make of Andrew Luck's performance?
Man, they certainly weren't easing him back into it. You know who threw the most passes of anybody in football yesterday? That guy, Andrew Luck.
Yep.
He also, early in the game, took a brutal shot where they ejected the safety, Sean Williams, and they should have ejected the safety, Sean Williams. Old rule, new rule, doesn't matter. It was a brutal helmet-to-helmet shot. I thought Luck was fine. He actually better than fine. He fine as far as health goes. Performance pretty damn good. Colts just aren't that good, and Jack Doyle killed him with that fumble at the end.
Dearest mother, the Tiger Men proved to be too much on Sunday for me, even though I trust my sidearm. No, you know what? Here's the thing. Andrew Luck is going to be Andrew Luck. The Colts offense is going to improve as he gets more experience in this regular season, gets his feet back under him. But their defense is awful. And that's really what it comes down to. They couldn't stop anybody, and Andy Dalton and the Bengals took advantage of it.
All right, moving on to Kirk Cousins' Vikings debut. He threw for 2 touchdowns and 244 yards in the win over the 49ers. Chris, is that what you expected to see out of Cousins?
Absolutely. I mean, Kirk Cousins probably has the most pressure on him than any other quarterback around the National Football League just because their team got to the NFC Championship game, and they've decided that they were going to replace the quarterback that was there for Kirk Cousins. He's got to help them get to the big game, and it starts by being able to win as many games in the regular season so you can try to get home field advantage. But that one throw that he had to Stephon Diggs, he dropped it in the bucket. I mean, that's why you paid Kirk Cousins all that money for that throw right there. That's $84 million guaranteed.
Kirk Cousins played very well, and the thing that he's going to enjoy this year is he doesn't even have to play quite as well as he did yesterday most weeks, because that Vikings defense looks as legit as they were last season. They gave Jimmy G fits all game long.
All right, same game here to the other side of the ball. Jimmy Garoppolo struggled in his season debut. Someone said he might. Throwing 3 picks in the loss. Nick, what did you make of Jimmy G's struggles yesterday?
I mean, this is a guy who not only just 6 starts with San Francisco, but just 7 touchdown passes going into yesterday's game. You're going up against one of the best defenses. You, much like Dak, don't have a lot of weapons. Jimmy G looked like a young quarterback against a great defense. It's one of the reasons why I was skeptical when they said, hey, Jimmy G, highest paid player in the league, at least for the moment he was. I think you're going to see more games like this. I think the jury is still absolutely out on Jimmy Garoppolo. I wasn't sold after the half-dozen games last year. Now, I don't think he's as bad as he was yesterday, but I think you're going to see games like this.
I think that was a product of playing against an elite defense more so than Jimmy Garoppolo being a fraud, because I trust what I saw last year in the 5 starts that he had. They went 5-0. We had a sample size of what the 49ers were with him as the starting quarterback and him with not being the starting quarterback. So I trust that. But some of the decisions that he made yesterday are head scratchers, like that interception that he threw at the end of the game to Harrison Smith. Who are you throwing the ball to? Like, it's triple coverage. Who are you throwing the ball to? You can't have your $127.5 million quarterback make those type of decisions.
All right, finally, the Chicago Bears seem to be cashing in on the Khalil Mack trade. He had a strip sack and a pick 6 in the loss to the Packers. Chris Caney, how impressed were you with Mack's performance?
I mean, Khalil Mack was trying to win defensive MVP in one game. I mean, one half of football. I mean, him taking the ball away from Deshaun Kaiser, the constant pressure that he put on Aaron Rodgers, that sack on Aaron Rodgers where he got knocked out of the game in the first half, that was Khalil Mack. Now, I know somebody else got credit for it, but that was really a product of the pressure that Khalil Mack was putting on Brian Bulaga and on Aaron Rodgers. So I look at Khalil Mack as somebody that's a transformative type of player. That defense just took a step from going to a good defense to an elite defense, and I think they'll continue to grow. You saw Roquan Smith get in there on his first play, have a sack, but that's, again, because of Khalil Mack being able to apply that kind of pressure. He changes everything defensively for that team. He actually improves the team just because they have an opportunity to be a dominant defense. That's going to help the offensive side of the ball, too. Khalil Mack is worth every penny that Ryan Pace and the Chicago Bears decided to pay him.
Khalil Mack did not go to training camp this year. Khalil Mack got traded 9 days ago, and he steps in, and for at least the first half, he's not only the best player on the field. For that first half of football, he was the best player in the league. That he had played up to halftime better than anybody had played. T.J. Watt had a great game. Von Miller had a great game. We saw some offense. No. He had been the best player in the league. Now, you saw some of the stamina issues. He was on a bit of a pitch count because he hadn't been in training camp, and the Packers going no huddle and hurry up took him out of the game a bit in the second half. But this is why you don't trade a player this good. And Chris Collinsworth slipped something in the broadcast. Now, maybe Khalil Mack's recreating history, but I'm going to take him at his word. Chris Collinsworth said on the broadcast, I asked Khalil Mack, if John Gruden had called you and said, listen, man, you are our guy, you are our best player, we are never moving you, let's work this out, would that have made a difference? And according to Collinsworth, Mack said, yeah, it would have. Well, that's a phone call Gruden's going to regret. I would say for his 10 years in Oakland, but for it might be his 3 or 4 years in Oakland.
Wow.
Because I don't know how much further he'll make it. Like, you can't get rid of a player like that and get fair value. You just can't. And to see him, if people hadn't been watching the Raiders a lot, because they weren't on national TV a ton, their West Coast team, like, he is so big. Like, to be able to move the way he can, and those 2 plays he made, the flash plays, the strip and the pick, that's what separates him from other excellent pass rushers. Like DeMarcus Lawrence, let me use him. I know he's only had 1 year of it, but he's an excellent pass rusher. But he does one thing, right? He gets to the quarterback. Khalil's ability, he took the ball, just took it from Deshaun Kaiser. Then the interception and the touch, like to finish the interception, not stumbling, not getting caught, but to score. And on if people will miss this, on the 75-yard Randall Cobb play, The person who comes the closest to tracking him down right before he gets to the end zone is Khalil Mack, who ran across the field and almost caught Randall Cobb. This guy is an elite athlete amongst elite athletes. Of course, he changes everything for Chicago.
And we weren't even talking about the Bears before Khalil Mack was traded there as anything, a contender, a force to be reckoned with. And it's rare to have a guy who can join a team and make such an impactful difference that you're actually considering them now as a team to watch. All right, moving on to the Patriots and the Texans. Tom Brady and Deshaun Watson. Deshaun Watson struggled, completing only half of his passes and turning the ball over twice in the Texans' loss. Tom Brady was Tom Brady. Even a 41, didn't miss a beat in Week 1, throwing for 277 yards and 3 touchdowns. Brady said after the game, New England can be even better than that moving forward.
I don't think we played, anywhere near what our capabilities are. So I think it's good to win, obviously, but we got to do a lot better than that. I think just turn the ball over and not take advantage of some opportunities that we had out there. All of us probably look at the game and realize we could have done a lot of things differently.
I think it was terrible on my part. So you can I just feel like you can put the L on me because I'll be way much better than what I showed today. Just my energy was low and just overthinking little things. But, we just got to capitalize in the red zone. Don't turn the ball over and just kind of continue to do what we do. Take it one play at a time, be on the same page, and just go from there.
Nick, this wasn't a game that should have been an obvious Patriots win. This was a sort of scaled-down Patriots offense going up against a very good and healthy, for a change, Texans defense. Were you impressed by what the Patriots did in their win?
Absolutely. Their ability to keep Tom Brady clean for the most part. I mean, he was sacked twice, only hit 5 times, compared to, by the way, Deshaun, who was hit a dozen times in the game. I thought that was impressive. We knew that Gronk, this is the difference between Belichick and everybody else, and certainly Belichick and O'Brien. Belichick knows what you want to do going into a game and takes it away from you. Other coaches know what you want to do going into a game and seemingly make it easier for you. We knew their option was going to be Gronk first, Gronk second, Gronk third, and nobody could stop him. And the Texans also, by the way, made mistake after mistake. And Deshaun, I appreciate Deshaun taking responsibility, because while his coach did him no favors, he did have a brutal game. He fumbled on his first touch. He missed a touchdown on 4th down. He had a bad interception, but the Patriots took advantage of all of it. And the Patriots continue to say, oh, okay, Philip Dorsett, you're a washed-out first-round pick who's never had you've had one big game in your career. What are we going to do with you? Okay, 7 catches, that's a career high. 66 yards, that's the second most of your career, or third most of your career, pardon me, and a touchdown.
Nick, do you think that was the plan going in?
I think the plan going in is we will see what you're giving us, and we will take advantage of it. And we have spent this entire offseason making sure we are only going to ask Philip Dorsett to do what he's comfortable with. So now he's going to look like a legitimate NFL receiver. And so the Pats, Brady played a great game, because of course he did, and they took advantage of the Texans' mistakes.
Yeah, it's not just Philip Dorsett, though, Nick. It's all the players on the Patriots. That's what Bill Belichick does better than any coach in the National Football League. He only asks his guys to do things that they're good at, and he keeps them out of situations where their deficiencies can be exposed. And on the other side of that coin, he always puts your guys in situations where they have to do things that they're not good at. You mentioned it. You know that Rob Gronkowski is the #1 wide receiver for Tom Brady going into yesterday's game. You figure you're going to have to stop him, but yet somehow, some way, they can't get it done. Now, Bill O'Brien did him a favor at the end of the first half by not calling a timeout and giving the officials an opportunity to get the buzz from the booth.
That might have been a 7-point mistake.
It was a 7-point mistake.
That wasn't a catch. It was called a catch. It wasn't a catch. At any review, it would have been overturned. The Pats intelligently rushed the line. It's inside 2 minutes, so you can't challenge. But what you can do, if you realize, by the way, the ref screwed it up and the replay review screwed it up. They screwed it up first. But in case of emergency, break glass. You're Bill O'Brien. You have 3 timeouts. You're not going to use them. You went to have with 3 timeouts. Once you see they're not going to buzz it, and the Pats get to the line, call timeout, so then they have time to review it. And Bill O'Brien, again,
you said it. You said it last week.
I said going into the game that he will cost you points in these situations. He said after the game, standoffishly, that's not my job. Nah, bro. Literally, you're the only person whose job it is.
Game management is a head coach's responsibility.
And you're the only person allowed to call timeout aside from the players.
Yep.
And the players aren't supposed to call timeout in that spot because they think they need a review. They're supposed to rely on the coach. But the game management there, you cost your maybe 7 points there. And then at the end of the game, the guy punted away down 14 with 4.5 minutes left. You can't win games like this. The NFL's too hard with too many excellent teams and great coaches to have a guy consistently kneecap you on game day. And so Deshaun didn't look right, by the way. That is the other big story of the game. There were some times where last year there was a seam and he would have run through it. He did not seem comfortable. His throws seemed off, and he did not seem comfortable on the knee, most notably. Now, I think that'll get better, but the Texans are sunk if he's not great. We knew he wouldn't be as great as he was last year, but we're seeing him miss throws. But the thing that's frustrating to me is the 23-year-old kid took full accountability at the podium.
Yes.
The Texans coach says, not my job, on something that cost your team, in my eyes, a touchdown and totally changed the complexion of the football game.
Were you also concerned a little bit with what you saw from Deshaun Watson, or some of that perhaps being maybe he's a little gun shy to get out there and give 100% just for fear that he might hurt himself again? And is that something that just comes with time?
Well, I anticipated that he wouldn't be 100% recovered from the knee injury. I mean, he's less than a year removed from ACL reconstruction, and it usually takes a year before you start to feel like yourself. So I'm not surprised that he struggled a little bit, but the things that I said Deshaun Watson couldn't do, which is turning the football over, the fumble, the interception, those mistakes can't happen if the Texans were going to go into Foxborough and win. It's hard to win in Foxborough when you're not winning the turnover battle. And so that's the one thing that I'm looking at with this team. They didn't extend drives, 2 of 11 on third downs. Those were the things that Deshaun Watson was going to have to do if this team was going to be competitive. I thought the defense did enough. I'm not going to say they had a great outing, but they did enough. I just felt like offensively it was so bad that they couldn't overcome that, and ultimately they couldn't get the win.
And quickly, the two things we were worried about with the Pats all offseason offensively. Who's going to catch passes? Well, they had 9 different guys catch passes. And how good's the offensive line? Against a very good, healthy pass rush, they kept Brady clean throughout. 2 sacks, only 5 hits to the quarterback. Trent Brown, who's kind of been pressed into duty at left tackle, I thought he played a good game. And so credit to the Pats. Like Mangini always talks about the O-line coach, Scarnecchia. We've all talked about how they will find wide receivers wherever, and they seem to have done it at least for a week once again.
Who's going to catch passes? Everyone's got you catch them all. You catch them all. We got to take a break. Coming up, Aaron Rodgers leads a comeback for the ages. That's next on First Things First. Welcome back to First Things First. Super Bowl champion Greg Jennings is here. What's up, Greg?
Jennings, good to see you,
Let me
sir.
just set the scene for you guys. We're here in New York City. It is cold. It feels like fall. Football just happened yesterday. We got Chris Caney and Greg Jennings here. Feels good.
Feels good, absolutely.
Feels right.
Good to see you.
It is right. It is right.
Awesome.
Chris Carter will be back, and we'll be here in 40 minutes, by the way.
Yeah, Chris is in Miami. He didn't make it back because his game lasted 127 hours.
Literally the longest game in NFL history.
Literally, for
First
real.
game ever calling, longest game in NFL history.
I felt for him, too. I'm like, man. Initially, I thought he was going to get back. Then, after that second one.
But we'll have him 8 o'clock.
Concessions people were happy, though.
Yes.
Without question.
Greg, as a former Packer, I'm sure this was a game you enjoyed watching. A storied NFL rivalry between said Packers and Bears added another interesting chapter. Aaron Rodgers suffered what looked like a devastating leg injury in the second quarter. He had to be carted off the field. He returned with the Packers trailing by 20. Thanks, guys. And mounted a comeback of the ages, throwing 3 second-half touchdown passes, 17 unanswered points, possibly the best quarterback we have ever seen since, spoke after one of his best performances ever.
This is what we're paid to do. You know, we're paid to deal with injuries and play through them. That's what everybody's doing and will be doing throughout this season. That's the measure of a teammate, is what are you willing to put on the line for your team. And to me, it's a no-brainer. Being out there is special. The ovation from the crowd lifts you up, gives you the energy, the momentum of the game, and you feel the tide turning is special. This is definitely go down as you know, one of my favorite memories. Playing behind Brett Favre for 3 years, you realize, you got to be tough to play this position. So you got to, in that situation, it's about coming back out and leading, and if you can do it and deal with the pain, you should be out there.
Greg, this game was only about a half hour old, and Aaron Rodgers already called it one of his greatest memories ever as a football player. How remarkable was what you saw last night out of Aaron Rodgers?
It was very remarkable. I was beyond impressed. Like, the price of admission at Lambeau Field was well worth it. I mean, when you saw him go down, the team was deflated. The fans were back into last season, reminded of what the season looked like. Everything kind of just went out the window. He comes back, and what he said in that interview was what I thought about. Number one, Aaron Rodgers is so competitive, but he mentioned Brett Favre. When you sit behind a guy who never misses a snap, like, he is always there, you're driven, your competitive nature is molded completely different. Like, Aaron Rodgers, after going down last year and then going down this first week of the season, he had to be thinking, there's no way I can allow this to happen again. 2 years in a row, basically missing the entire season, I have to be able to come back out here and give my team a boost. What impressed me the most as far as his play is we always get enamored with the way he is accurate outside the pocket, the way he can extend the plays, the way he's just blows your mind outside the pocket. Aaron Rodgers, when he has to be a pocket passing quarterback, is the best pocket passing quarterback in the NFL. There's no question about it. He's so precise. He gets rid of the ball so quickly. He turned into a completely different player.
Because he didn't have his mobility. He was clearly limited.
Yes, he was limited.
And they did a great job in the broadcast of showing how he just looked differently when he was dropping back. And he had to do it all upper body. And he still can throw a 50-yard rope to Geronimo Allison.
Special.
Couldn't have handed it to him any better. And by the way, credit to Allison, especially the receiver out here, because he made a heck of a play. As good of a pass as it was, that was still a contested catch. But this is across the field. It's 50 yards vertically, but it's another 30 yards horizontally. Like, you guys can draw the triangle and figure out what the hypotenuse is. Like, that's how many yards did that go in the air? Was that 75 yards in the air?
Like, do you see where the ball placement is, though? Like,
this is, you know what that throw reminded me of? That drill we see him do where they throw it into the trash can.
Yeah.
And it was dropping it in the bucket. I think the Favre note is a great one because let's keep in mind, even once the test came back right, after missing last year with an injury, they're down 17-0 at halftime. They're down 20-0 before they get the ball back in the second half. It would not have been unreasonable to say, you know what? It's not worth it. Like, I'm going to be compromised. I'm more likely to get injured playing in this game. Seriously, either the knee hurt again or because I can't move and Khalil Mack is terrorizing everyone. What if Khalil Mack Anthony bars me because I can't move? 20-0 with 25 minutes left. The game's over. Like, let me pack this one in. It'll be a good story that I can come play next week against Minnesota, a team I'm going to have to be fully operational for. But instead, and I wonder how much the Favre stuff was instructional for him. Like, it was a all-time performance from a player who never ceases to amaze.
Well, what I get from the soundbite and listening to him after the game is just insight into how he was feeling when he was knocked out of last year. And just him wanting to take that next step in terms of ownership and accountability. You heard him during the training camp when he was talking about the young players not giving a good look on the scout team. This is a different Aaron Rodgers that we're seeing now, and I think that's because he's had an opportunity to reflect being away from the game due to injury last season on how important it is to him, but how important for him it is to set the standard for everybody else in the organization and all of the players. I think they're trying to take it to another level, and Aaron Rodgers is looking at his career mortality and saying, I don't have that much longer with this group and playing at this kind of level. I've got to be able to take advantage of these gifts and we've got to try to win now. There's more urgency in what he's doing, and you can hear it in his voice. And now by him doing what he did last night, coming back into the game, Nick, as you mentioned, where it wouldn't have been outside of the realm of possibility for Mike McCarthy to hold him out, I think now that shows everybody on that team, this is what we're going to be about, and this is the standard now. If I can do it, everybody else is expected to do it. We're not handling anybody with kids' gloves. We've got a mission that we're trying to accomplish, and this is how you need to be accountable to the rest of your teammates.
Look, it all worked out great, and he did come out and have an incredible comeback. But were you surprised that McCarthy threw him back in? Because if he, I don't know, hurt himself further, if Khalil Mack got to him again, if something went awry and he turns out the tests were not as good as they were because he re-damaged his knee, I think a lot of people feel like that would have been a terrible mistake.
Well, Jenna, they were talking about it in the broadcast. Collinsworth and everybody in the booth, they were saying that this is starting to get to the point where you wouldn't bring Aaron Rodgers back into the game. But the fact that he did come back, I think that's a testament to him. But also, I'm looking at the Chicago Bears, and I'm wondering why Vic Fangio didn't pressure Aaron Rodgers more. Why didn't you bring more blitzes, particularly in the middle of the pocket, force him to get off the spot? Because you know that he's compromised. He doesn't have the mobility that you saw in the first half. You got to be aggressive and try to go after him. I felt like they left the door open for Aaron Rodgers to mount that comeback, and that's just something that you look back on and you say, that's unacceptable. The Chicago Bears gave one away last night in Lambeau Field.
I don't know if they gave one away or Aaron Rodgers took it from them. And this is why Mike McCarthy made the decision, and pretty much Aaron made the decision, I'm going back out there to play. Last year, I did a production meeting, and I was talking to Mike McCarthy, and he says, man, Aaron Rodgers, I mean, he's invaluable. Like, he allowed reality to really set in, like, wow, this is what life is like without a elite quarterback. Mm-hmm. So he experienced that last year. So it was a no-brainer. If Aaron says I can come back and play, I experienced losing and not having an opportunity to win, not putting my team in the best position, not being able to be afforded my entire playbook all of last year. So I'm definitely gonna let him play. To your point, when it comes to the Chicago Bears and pressuring him, you can't pressure Aaron Rodgers because he's going to pick you apart. He's seen every blitz. So the moment you start to show, or you even try not to show, he's gonna catch you slip. That's what happened the last play of the game. He just hits Randall Cobb on a quick little dunk, and he does the rest. A great quarterback, you can't really blitz and attack him when he can be mobile. Get it, he wasn't. But when he gets the ball out as quickly as Aaron Rodgers, it's nothing you can really do.
I agree with you, Greg, but I'm going to say this. You were up by 17 points going into the fourth quarter.
So you have to do something.
I give you a touchdown to knock your quarterback down again. Because I'm trying to knock you out of the game. That's what I'm going to do. I can afford to give up a big play if that means putting Aaron Rodgers on the ground again.
If Kaiser's coming back in, I give you. They would have just given him 14 points. Listen, if Kaiser's going to play the rest of it. Aaron Rodgers took the field with 9:14 left in the third quarter because the Bears got the ball to start the second half, drove, long drive, got a field goal. In that moment, they were down 20-0. He knew he was going to have to touch the ball at best 4 more times. You were going to have to score at least 21, probably more. Field goal, touchdown, touchdown, touchdown. He touched it a 5th time to take knees and game over. In those drives, he was 17 of 23 for 270 yards, 3 touchdowns, no picks, and picked everyone apart. On a bum leg. Like, that is make-believe stuff. And for him to do it, and by the moment Allison came down with that touchdown, I think all of us watching were like, this dude gonna do this, right? Yeah. Like, my only concern was, would the defense get the stops? And the defense almost let up at the very end, but thanks to some unfortunate for the Bears play calling at the end, they let him off the hook, and now you're down 6. You're down 6 and Rodgers has the ball. If I didn't check the live odds in like online betting, but I bet you down 6 with the ball, the Packers were the favorites in that game. That's only the case with him and Brady.
That's it.
Every other quarterback in the league, they're significant underdogs. It is a pleasure to watch this guy.
Absolutely fantastic game last night. Greg, stick around. Coming up on the other side, why did the Steelers lay an egg against the Browns? That's next. First things first. Back here, first things first, time for Say What? The Jags got the win over the Giants, but had to overcome 119 yards of penalties in the process. Jags coach Doug Marrone says that could be an issue in the future. Say what?
We know that we can be better than that. And, at the end of the day, we were able to get the win. But, if you keep, on that track, that stuff will bite you in the ass. Am I allowed to say that? Yeah. Okay.
Say it, then ask for permission.
Shout out to my guy from the Bronx, just coming out there and just saying how it is, man. I love Doug Marrone. I love that attitude with this team. Listen, it was a sloppy football game in MetLife Stadium, and he knows it. They got out of there with one. I mean, the Giants had opportunity after opportunity and blew all of them, including but not only the muff punt at the end by Kalen Clay. But, I mean, it was a sloppy football game, but the Jags did just enough to get the win.
Yep. All right, let's move on with Greg Jennings here on set. Browns hosting the Steelers yesterday. Browns looking for the first win in what felt like forever. Taking on a Steelers team without L. Bell. No Le'Veon Bell in this one. This game closer than the Steelers would have liked. It went to overtime, tied at 21, and that's where this game stayed. Bell's replacement, James Conner, had 192 total yards and 2 touchdowns, while quarterback Ben Roethlisberger had 5 turnovers. Head coach Mike Tomlin spoke about the joys of a tie after the game.
It's an awkward feeling after a game like that. You don't know what to feel or to say or to think, I'm appreciative of the efforts of the men. Obviously, it was some extraordinary effort at times. We got to play better. Got to play better to ensure victory.
I mean, you felt like we had a chance. And our defense did a great job of giving us that chance. And it's just frustrating that you can't make the plays down the stretch, and we didn't make them.
We got to play better all the way around is what I told our football team. It's just not where we want to be yet. Again, it's not preseason football. It's National Football League. It's regular season. We got to continue to get better. But again, I think the guys can see that we're an improved football team, but there are some areas we got to clean up fast.
Greg, the Browns were like, we didn't lose, we didn't lose, we didn't lose. Let's talk about it from the Steelers' perspective to start off. How concerning was their performance in this tie against the Browns?
For me, it's concerning. It's very concerning. And I'll start with Ben Roethlisberger. The most important player on the field, and you turn the ball over 5 times. Like, you just can't do that. For me, when I look at Ben Roethlisberger, as great a quarterback, as great as a career that he's had, he turns the ball over. He's going to give the opposing opponent at least 2, maybe 3 extra possessions every single game. You cannot do that. When you're playing in a game like this, with the conditions the way they were, the hierarchy of the game is protect the football.
Especially when you got a 21-7 lead in the fourth quarter.
As a quarterback, you're getting in the huddle, Chris, and you're telling everybody, guys, protect the football. You're telling your young running back, 2 hands on the football. And you continue to be the mishap when it comes to turnovers, getting stripped, throwing errant passes. I need to see Ben Roethlisberger play better consistently. This is why the Pittsburgh Steelers struggled yesterday, because of their leader, Ben Roethlisberger. He just didn't perform at a high level.
Listen, since 2004, since when Big Ben came into the league, there's only been 3 quarterbacks that have at least, other than Big Ben, 3 5-turnover games, right? That's in 15 years. Big Ben's got 2 of them in a year.
Yep.
He had a 5-turnover game against the Jags. He had one. The only 5-turnover games that I know of in the last year plus in the NFL is the famous Peterman game. And now
you
2.
mean the half.
Right, the half. And now 2 by Big Ben. And the timing of the turnovers. You're up 21-7. James Conner, who had an excellent game, he fumbles. They end up, it's 21-14. But now it's 21-14 late in the fourth quarter. Big Ben fumbles, allows them, they end up tying the game. And then at the end of the game, in the end of overtime, when the Browns punt the ball away with 1:30, they are saying, we're taking the tie. Like, they could have gone for it on 4th and 10 and said, we don't want a tie, but they, I think, intelligently thought, tie is better than a loss, we'll punt it away, know that best we can do is a tie. Nope. Big Ben put them in position to lose. If Myles Garrett doesn't have a block in the back on the return, the Browns, the story today is the Browns won. They would have had the ball at the 9-yard line, either run it in or kick a field goal. I think the field goal would have had a much better chance from there than from where they ended up kicking it from. That's brutal by him. Like, all this noise surrounding L. Bell, all this noise surrounding Mike Tomlin. This is the highest paid guy on the team, future Hall of Fame quarterback, who told everyone who'd listen, I'm in my best shape, I'm ready to play 5 more years, ready for my best season. And you start off with 5 turnovers against a Browns team that couldn't force a turnover to save its damn life last year. That's brutal. That's why they were in this position, to go along with the Browns being a better team than they were last year.
Yeah, it's the exact opposite of what we're seeing from Aaron Rodgers, right? Both quarterbacks came out and they were vocal about trying to set a standard and about what they were going to come into this season about. But Aaron Rodgers actually showed us by coming out in that second half and having that type of performance. Ben Roethlisberger showed us what he's about by what he did in the fourth quarter and overtime. So when you look at the two teams, it's not a surprise to me to see the Steelers with not complacency, but a lack of urgency in critical situations, in critical phases of the game. And the Cleveland Browns did just enough not to lose that game. Now, they had an opportunity to win that game at the end, but I think there were some mistakes by them. Turnovers by Tyrod Taylor. I didn't think he was great in terms of his pocket awareness either. But in terms of what the Cleveland Browns look like as a team, I think they have some positives that they can build on from this game. Myles Garrett looks legit as a pass rusher.
Aside from that one mistake I mentioned, he was unreal.
Nick, I'm right there with you in thinking that he's going to be one of those players that we talk about with the Defensive Player of the Year award. Like, he's at that level. But if you're Ben Roethlisberger, you can't let that game, the complexion of that game, change in the fourth quarter. You're a championship-level quarterback. You got to go out there and play like it. If that's the expectations for the Steelers this season, they've got to get more from their guy.
We'd be remiss if we didn't mention L. Bell, who was at home, I'm sure, watching this to see your replacement, James Conner, come in. Yeah, so James Conner.
Monocle? The
James Conner comes in and has a good game. He has a good game for him. You wonder if, because he had a great game and the Steelers lost, was that good for L. Bell or tied rather? They didn't win, or not as good for L. Bell? Did it seem like they needed him, or maybe they don't need him?
Let me say this: they need Le'Veon Bell. I don't care how well James Conner plays. They need Le'Veon Bell. It was not, however, good for Le'Veon Bell because in this league, and Chris, you know this, anytime you can play and you allow someone else the opportunity to play and they shine, it takes a little bit more light off of you. And you just can't allow somebody to get that opportunity. He sees the moment. Absolutely, I'm excited for him. But Le'Veon Bell is a necessity to this football team if they're going to make the type of run that we expect and that they expect to have and make this year.
Listen, all credit to James Conner. I kind of scoffed at the idea of what the linemen were saying, that he could do what L. Bell does, and I don't know that. In fact, I know that I don't believe he can do it over a long sample. But yesterday he was great. He had 36 touches. He had 192 yards. He had 2 touchdowns. He had the bad fumble late, which you can't do, but he played an exceptional game for a guy whose previous big game was 4 carries for 26 yards. He had a high workload in awful conditions, and he stepped up. And so all the credit in the world to him. L. Bell, that if people can laugh, like as soon as the game ended, he tweeted out the emoji with the monocle on it, and then he was like, "No, it was no shade. I just had never seen a tie before."
Stop it. Stop it,
I mean,
L. Bell.
I don't believe it, and it feels like it's getting tougher and tougher for him to go back into that locker room if you're tweeting that out right after your teammates played a 4-hour game in those conditions.
Does he come back, yes or no?
At some point.
No, he's coming back this season because he wants that accrued year so he can be a free agent next year.
Yes, indeed.
Thank you for listening to the First Things First podcast. Remember, leave us a review and tell us what you think. Subscribe to the podcast on Apple Podcasts and catch us on FS1 Monday through Friday, 6:30 a.m. Eastern. For Chris Carter and Nick Wright, I'm Jenna Wolf. So long, everybody.